the government of Russia tries to basically plug a hole in their budget, because there is a hole in the budget, quite a fucking giant one. They are taking quite a lot of, or making quite a lot of fines for 600 billion Russian rubles, which is basically like $10 billion or something like that. From that basically like IRS kind of a thing, right? Took from all sorts of little businesses, factories, whatnot, across the whole country, enterprises, from January to September. It's basically like almost 2 times as much, as more than 2 times, 120%, so more than 2 times than in 2021. So yeah. in some regions, like fines, business fines, went up hundreds of percent. In Tambovsk Oblast, Tambovsk region, 740% compared to the prior year. Tatarstan, almost 500%. Sverdlovsky region, Sverdlovsky Oblast, 460%. Samarska, 320%. St. Petersburg, 300%. You can kind of imagine, obviously, what it does to the atmosphere of entrepreneurship. And this is something that Belarus and its dictator has been doing consistently in the past 15 years, just killing off smaller businesses, especially like solo entrepreneurs and smaller companies, with just a shit ton of taxes, especially shit ton of not even taxes. Some taxes are actually alright, but uncertainty in terms of everything can change tomorrow. You're never protected against the government, basically, because the court system is non-existent. It's the same in Belarus as it is in Russia, basically. You'll never win a case against the government, basically. And then just the amount of little bullshit kind of laws. I bet the bullshit laws exist in every country, but the amount of bullshit laws in Belarus, I can speak for Belarus only, because I know in Russia it's the same, but my own experiences in Belarus, the amount of bullshit laws, which basically means like in a restaurant, for example, right? You can find, if you're an inspector, you can find 20 different little 20 different little sort of, not errors, but what's the word I'm searching for? Oh, my brain. See, this is where I should cut off the stream and this episode, because my brain starts to already fry a little bit. Oh my god. Violation. I was searching the word violation. I'm so dumb. If you're an inspector and if you arrive into some business, you can find 20 fucking violations of some codes, some obscure shit in I don't know, span of 10 minutes or whatever. And thus this kind of props up corruption, obviously. So either you're gonna go and basically remove all of those violations, you fix them all, or you just pay to the fucking inspector, which means that you still the next day some other inspector comes, you need to pay that cunt as well. Or I'm saying, if their actual sort of, in this case with Russia, right, here, if they want to fine you, so you can't even prop up the corruption, because you can't just pay this guy for just okay, disappear please. They're gonna fine you, and they're gonna extract even more money from you, like that. So going back to my point, circling back, what kind of the atmosphere it creates for entrepreneurs, for businesses, small businesses and things like that? Well, shitty, obviously, shitty one. It's been really hard to make business in Russia, in those countries, Belarus, all the time, really. And now it's getting even harder, and thus a lot of people are just choosing fuck that. And why I said this about Belarus is because in the past like 15 years, like I'm saying, that there was like a deliberate push to, well, push people out of their businesses, force them to either pay too much taxes or do their or create basically every obstacle that you can for them doing businesses and being free, basically, to basically, yeah, put them into submission of giving up their businesses, giving up their entrepreneurships, and either immigrate out of the country completely if they have some money, or go and work at governmental factories where you are totally controlled. If you go to some protests, if you're like spotted at some protests, you can be fired. So obviously this is like another piece of control. How they do it to you is that, like I just said, you even think, oh, what am I doing? Like, will I not get caught? Will I, like, sort of, you yourself keep yourself in check, in line with the governmental, party message, whatever shit, And it's all real, basically. I'm not imagining anything. Like, I think I've spoken about this like in one of the previous whatever episodes, that I actually know people who got fired from their jobs from the governmental factories because, like, in the year whatever 2021 or whatever 2020, they've got spotted not even at the protests, but like got kind of swept into all of the fucking motions, whatever happened there. So they weren't even at the protest, just got into police basically detention for whatever a couple hours, and that a year later have resulted basically in firing them, being out of job. And in basically in a smaller town in Belarus, there aren't that many places where you can find new job, which aren't governmental, because governmental jobs tend to pay more than, usually at least, more than the private sort of companies. Okay, anyway, let's finish it up with what?